So at the moment, we have got 36 people on this call from all over the world. So, I mean, that is amazing. We've got Australia on the call, Denmark, Singapore, South Africa, London. And every time I look up, there's more people. So, wow. Just to give you guys an idea of what everything's about and to introduce the concept, because there's quite a few new people. The Women's Leadership Circle has been going since August last year. We meet once a month. And every month we look at a different topic. And those topics are relevant, I hope, to women in leadership. Some of them are more generic, but it is good to talk about different stuff every time. And just for those of you out there who are keen, I am very happy to accept volunteers for facilitating sessions, because obviously everyone gets a little tired of the same voice every time. But today's discussion is going to be around a book I read over the Christmas period called First Break All the Rules. So I suppose the first thing is, how many of you have actually ever read the book? And just out of interest, maybe put your hands up if you've read the book, just to get an idea if anyone's read the book or if it's all new to everybody. Nope. No hands up. Okay, I'm going to take that as not too many of you have read the book. Great, then I can share stuff. Fantastic. So today's call, as I said, is based on that. And the way we do these calls, for those of you who are new to the group, is it's more of a conversation. It's not a lecture. And I pose questions that come from various places. And the first question I'd like to ask the group about is, as leaders and women in leadership, how do we measure human capital? How do we measure the human happiness, the human buy-in, the human support within the organization? How do we measure how successful HR are? How do we know if HR is working? So if you have a thought, put your hand up. Otherwise, just come off mute and talk. It is a very big group, so I will ask if we get a bit noisy just to use hands, but for now, let's just come off mute if anyone's got some thoughts they'd like to add to the conversation. Okay, so
I think Fiona had a good one there when she mentioned about employee turnover. So I'm working with an organisation, a client organisation at the moment, who prides themselves on their culture, but currently has extremely high employee turnover, and very, very high, not only compared to others in their industry, but also in the region. And so it was really important to give them, that pretty frank feedback about where they were positioned, because I'm not sure that they were fully aware of, they hadn't benchmarked themselves. So I think it's about being real and, just recognizing where you're at with that as well.
Okay, so honesty and honesty with self is quite important there, Selena.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, Fiona's typing away. Talent turnover, employer branding, position in the rankings, Gallup polls or climate surveys. Any other suggestions on how we measure human capital?
Good morning, Chantal.
Good morning again.
Yes, I've joined late, so I don't know what I've missed out on here. But in terms of measuring human capital, I think that you need to have a base from which to start to measure it. And what is it exactly that you're looking for in terms of human capital? So what are the skills categories or groups that you're looking for? And then you need to identify where the gaps are in order for you to measure it. And I think that's where the problem comes in. People don't know where they are with it. They don't know what's missing, and they don't know how to gauge what they have and what they don't have.
Okay, I like that. So they don't actually know what's missing. They don't know how they're measuring, so they can't measure it, as it were.
No, and I think that's why training or education always gets a bad rap, because it's, well, what's my return on investment? Well, if you don't know what you started with, how do you know what your return on investment is going to be anyway?
And that's a good point. So many times we've got clients who say to us, what's my ROI? But they didn't measure it from the beginning. So you don't have that baseline information.
No.
Cool, thank you. Natalie, you're off mute. Do you want to chat? No. Okay, I think it was Navashni that typed in some comments here. Do you want to share your comments with the team, Navashni?
Oh, yeah. So I think it's similar to what the lady before me said. You know, a good measure of engagement via culture surveys is very important. But what do you do with that information? Because, you know, oftentimes we get feedback that you receive all this wonderful feedback and, you know, feedback for growth with the leadership team and with the, you know, middle management, etc. But what are we doing with that? And I think it's crucial that we take that information and really break it down with the people themselves. There's an element of transparency that's required, an element of you know, communication that is constant throughout your entire people engagement process. And if you don't have that, you're not going to build the trust levels that you require. And if you have the trust level that people see that you are communicating, they want to engage with you more. They'll want to share their feedback with you more. And that just, you know, builds the culture, it builds your brand. It says that these are leaders that care about what I say. They're interested in my wellness. Yeah, so that's what I believe. That's what we're doing, and it's really working well for us.
So what you're saying here is it's not necessarily about the actual survey, it's what you do with the information you get out of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's pointless you gathering all this valuable data and you store it away in a PowerPoint presentation and you bring it up once a year to say, hey, here's what the results revealed. And thank you for the survey. And then it's time again to roll around another survey, and then you're going to get the question, but what have you done with the feedback that I've given you in the last 12 months? So I think it's a constant emphasis that has to be placed on people's feedback and you know, taking it to heart and actually seeing tangible results coming out of that, seeing action coming out of that.
Awesome, I love it. Fiona, I notice you've been typing furiously. Do you want to maybe share some of your thoughts with the ladies?
There's a bit of noise in the background. So, I mean, I work in learning and development. How's the sound, Chantal? Is it good?
It's okay. Well, yeah, no, we'll cope.
Okay. So, I just think learning and development often is, you know, when there's a problem, the people need training. So they get posted off the training department, and then we're expected to work miracles. And actually, training itself has some areas to improve. You know, I mean, what gets measured is not necessarily the real stuff. It doesn't tell you the truth, I suppose, what I mean.
So we measure like bums on seats and attendance, but that doesn't necessarily translate into results. Interesting. In fact, we had a conversation in a meeting this morning, Tanya and I, around that and how you take that training to make sure you put the application coaching behind it. Mariana, traditionally performance appraisals. Do you want to add to that?
I think that's just generally how we've been measured. That's the traditional way. I haven't found it that effective. I think there is a place for it, but I think we're missing out on other stuff as well. I think people, especially those who are being appraised, shy away from the feedback. And often the feedback is not given in a way that improves motivation and commitment. It just focuses on compliance. So I hope to see how we break the rules on that.
Awesome. Okay. Jill, your hand's up.
Thanks, Shant. Morning, everybody. I just wanted to follow on from Fiona's comment about the expectation going to the training department and the expectation to work miracles. But then what I'm finding is, we produce training material for our clients. And there's a 5-step process. So yes, the training is delivered, but the part that I feel that is the most important, the key piece, which is the competency, the assessment after opportunity to practice. There's our data shows there's a very low usage of those of that assessment after some time of practice. And and that's where you can see you'll be able to find out whether or not the participant has internalized and actually absorbed the new skill, the new competency that's expected of them. There's low usage in our with our client base. Internally in our business, so now with that learning time, place emphasis on the assessment part, but it's hitting the right mark between with each learner. There are some learners who love the idea of an exam type assessment and just totally excel at it, and then there are others who absolutely cower. I'm one of those. I don't do well in the exam environment, but with the same subject matter and put me in front of a friendly group and let me explain what my learnings, then that's where I do well.
Okay, thanks
so,
for that.
So all that, and then, okay, do we have the time? Do the managers, do the leaders have time to make space for this piece? Yeah, we've got the typical performance appraisal. So we make the time, we say one-on-ones, more regular one-on-ones. And then it often falls by the wayside because just so many other objectives and tasks to complete, which is a pity.
I like that, Tanya. The ability to achieve business improvement following training relies on the support of management. Are students allowed to implement the change? Fantastic. And I see just above Tanya's comment, I can't remember the name, I'm going to say the name wrong, I'm sorry, it's Malebogeng. Do you want to maybe share a little bit more on your point?
Hi, everyone. Thank you. So I'm not necessarily in human capital, but what I know is it is the economic value that you find in an individual. And often what I've noticed is performance management tools try to aggregate the individual output and make it a population output. And by that, I mean, you take all the people with an MBA or specific or similar training and you give that a value, but all those people do not give you the same economic value. And from that perspective, how we measure human capital is a bit flawed because we cannot make an individual value a population value.
Love it.
So I guess
agreeing with
in
you.
an innovative, I'm sorry, so in an innovative and agile world, one now needs to say, okay, I work for this organization, and an organization based on the type of skills it requires and based on the outputs it requires, it needs to come up with specific matrices as to how they will measure it, not from a universal standard point of view.
Awesome. No, I love that. I'm seeing lots of positive comments coming up here. So in the book, First Break All the Rules, which is based on the Gallup surveys that Fiona mentioned in one of the comments earlier, what they did is they went and researched high-performing businesses, low-performing businesses, all sorts of businesses, and they interviewed people right from shop floor through to management. And they narrowed it down through qualitative and quantitative research to 12 questions. And the concept in the book is that if you can meet the needs of the people with these 12 questions, you will start to get motivated, excited people. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share the questions and go through them. And then I thought perhaps we can have a conversation about what to do with those questions. How do we turn it into action? So hang on, have I done it right? Yes. Okay, so the 12 questions that measure the strength of a workplace. The first one is, do I know what is expected of me at work? When I come to work, do I know what I need to do? Do I know what my boss is expecting? Do I know what the organization is expecting? The second one is, do I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right? And especially in this environment right now, it's a very important one. I read an article a while back where Vodacom told everyone to come fetch their work office chairs and take it home, because working at home, they were all experiencing backache and all sorts of weird and wonderfuls. So the question of, do I have the materials and equipment to do my work right, is critical. At work, do I have the opportunity to do my best every single day? Do I have that opportunity to shine? In the last 7 days, have I received recognition or praise for my good work? Does my supervisor or someone at work seem to care about me as a person? So it's more than just work. It's about looking at our people as people. And number 6, is there someone at work who encourages my development? So those are the first 6 of the 12 questions. I'm going to leave that slide up for a little bit. And I'd love to hear if anyone has any thoughts or comments on those questions and how we can use that to help us be better leaders. Navashni.
Chantal, yes. So these questions are from the Gallup Q12 survey as well. I noticed that they're very similar.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's exactly the same.
Correct. So these were the 12 most critical questions they said were important for employee happiness and well-being in the workplace. The first 6 of those.
I would be interested to know how many organizations actually apply half of this. And this is just the first 6 questions.
Very true. I mean, I look at it and think back to my days in various places, and yeah, in some instances, probably not. Sina, I see
No.
you've got yourself off mute.
Well, I just had a little bit of a personal experience with your questions, which I'm going to personally say yes to all of them in one organization I work for, because I'm gonna speak in terms of employees as part of the employee package, because I was not management or a leader in that space. I was part of the employees, but the question that still raised a lot since I've been there, I think I was there for like 2 years or so, over 2 years. There has been staff leaving every month, 1-2 staff, 1-2, and it's not even like a big agency, it's a small agency. So you know what I mean? So in terms of those questions, as personally from an employee standpoint, most of the employees, they would answer yes to all of this. But the question would be then, why would there be such a high staff turnover? I think it's because of an interpersonal relationship between management and each staff member. I don't know. Somehow there is an issue when it comes to, especially with management, in terms of looking up into the interpersonal space of someone's abilities to grow, if you know what I mean. So if you're an employee and you see yourself maybe reaching a point where now you want to be a senior in your role, but management is not working with you in terms of seniority. So you can answer yes to it because they may look like they are recognizing you as a person to grow, but that recognition is not fully stamped on and is made available to you. So how does management actually do that? What is the time frame that you see an employee who has potential, and in 6 months, and you give them 2 months and be like, you know what, here's your senior role right there and then? What is that? Because I feel like there is a very big disconnect between employees and management, giving them the exact time frame of when to move them to your seniority process.
So clarity is something that's missing. Mariana, your hand is up.
I wanted to say, for these 6 questions, I have experience of not seeing this in a working environment.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked for another company where I had all of that. And I just grew and flourished in the second scenario. I think just the connection, identifying what I'm good at and focusing on that, I think that just helped me flourish in my second job. And I'm very focused on number 3. So if you have a manager who knows and nurtures what you're good at, and you have the opportunity to do what you're really good at, to use your strength, I think then that just makes the work environment much better.
Yeah, that's so true. Pinky, I think your hand's up.
Yes, it is. This is my first time attending this. I found this event by chance. I'm looking at these questions, right? And in my mind is that there's a disconnect between human resources skills and the general management. When you look at these questions, they're very employee centric, which is what I love. However, when you look at traditional leadership, you get like progression in your career by technical skills, right? So when you get to be a manager, you don't have those human resource skills. And you're the person that spends a whole lot of time with an employee. So when you're a leader in that particular environment, your concentration is on deliverables, right? On results. And then when you think about, somebody talked about attrition, and then there's a saying that people don't leave great companies, they leave something like they leave because of managers. And there's a big gap between people that are not particularly from human resources, they're technical managers, and being able to manage workforce.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point you've made there, because it's about the leadership, and it's about what they call servant leadership, or leading from the heart as opposed to managing people. And there's a big difference and distinction, I suspect, between management and leadership. Tanya.
So something that pops up here for me, and I don't know if other people have experienced it, is if you know, you find that people are really good at their job, you know, they perform well, they get great results, etc., etc., etc. And they're so good that the company don't want to promote them or move them or allow them to grow, because, you know, many companies don't have that talent pool or succession planning. So these people get stuck where they are because they're doing such a great job. And I don't know if this is a common thing or if it just pops up every now and then, but I certainly know a lot of people that have experienced that type of environment.
Sorry, I muted because my birds were talking. Yeah, the work environment is a very interesting place. Ms. Thapa, did you want to say something?
Thank you so much. I joined quite late, so I am not able to say all those things. But according to your questions that you have mentioned, like strength of workplace. About my opinion about these questions, I think there is something is missing and not connecting between employees and then leaders. So here we have to see the employee sub point about the what expectation or what strength and limitation your employees have, and then even leader also have. Then according to that, we have to provide the opportunity to work the right place, right devices or materials. I think from my side, something is not going questions is quite big. Then asking many answer here. So we have to be specify what we want to measure from our employees and boss in the workplace. For strengthening the workplace, we have to find the component, like employee component, leadership component, component, and workplace component. Then we have to formulate the questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to the next 12 questions because I'm conscious of time, and then we can go think about those as well. So the next 12 questions that were suggested are, at work, do my opinions count? Does the mission or purpose of my company make me feel like my work is important? Are my co-workers committed to doing quality work? Do I have, that should be a best friend, not a better friend at work? In the last 6 months, have I talked to someone about my progress in the organization? And finally, at work, have I had the opportunities to learn and grow? So those questions are the next questions that were in that list of critical questions for strength of a workplace. And I'd love to hear some thoughts on those questions, or to build on the questions from before. So who has some thoughts?
I think Chantal.
Sina, are you there?
Yes. So my question is in terms of what is the solution with regards to this? Because in my work environment, for example, I've excellently would say yes to all of these questions, but there is always a miscommunication between the appraisal time and the time where you're supposed to move up and grow in your career as an employee. So I think the reason why there's so much staff turnover is because of maybe leadership and management. I'll just put them in one group. So what is the solution for that? Is there a time frame? What is it that managers can work on? I'm sure there's leaders in this group that have experience having an employee who can say yes to all these questions without a doubt and be a high achiever in the workplace, but they're still not happy and they resign tomorrow. So is there a solution from any of the ladies in here that can be brought up besides having all the assessments done, etc., but a true solution to an employee to say, yes, all of them have been answers, but this is what we can do to have less staff turnover in terms of human capital?
Some interesting questions. Selena, you're off the mic.
Yeah, sorry about that. I probably won't be able to make the whole session. It's witching now. I hear it's about 6:30, but I'll do my best for the next bit. But I thought this was really quite insightful questions there, Shanti. So I suppose I just wanted to just briefly share from personal experience that, you know, when I was going through my career, I was asking myself some of these questions. So when I graduated from chemical engineering and I went to work for a large global aluminium mining company, I did start to sort of question, you know, what is this mission and purpose of my company?
Mm-hmm.
And sort of realized that I needed to try and get a bit of balance, not only inside of work, but outside of work. I was working in a really, really technical space.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know, I think there's a part of everyone that likes to think that what they're doing has some sort of greater purpose and helping the greater good. And it was hard for me to extrapolate that at that point. Moving into more of a change role certainly helped that. But I also was doing things outside of work, you know, studying some psychology, etc. I think it's really important, you know, as leaders going forward with that question number 8, to try and make sure that, you know, we set up a level of purpose for what people are doing. You know, people within an organisation are not ants just sort of wandering around, you know, doing certain things. You know, people want to be part of a bigger picture, and I think there's some ways we can do that in an operational setting where we, you know, bring in daily management system and we have, you know, a system where people can see, you know, they're in the green if they've done a great job or not. So I think it's a lot more difficult in an office setting, and when we're starting to look at, you know, some more of the white collar roles. I think also number 10 is important at the moment, given everything is very, very virtual. I probably speak to people, I definitely speak to people more often virtually. And I can't think of the last time I saw a work colleague face to face. So I think it's really important to continue those relationships that you have with better friends at work, online, using the chat functionalities that a lot of us have available to us. And you know, I think in terms of our progress at the moment, I'm sure there's a lot of people at the moment who may be feeling that, you know, not only some of their personal goals, but some of their work goals have been interrupted. And their progress has been, you know, interrupted by essentially what's happening in the world at the moment. So yeah, I think those are fantastic questions to pose to us, Shanti.
Thank you. And thank you so much for joining. I know it's Friday evening for you, so I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Shanti.
Mariana, you had your hand up.
I was thinking about the tone of these 12 questions.
Mm-hmm.
The tone is people, relationships. It's about integrating who you are into the workplace. And that's how to measure strength. But if you look at the language that we use in our companies now, it's about capital, human capital, which is an industrialized machine type of word.
I hate that
we
one.
talk about workforce, a very mechanical kind of labor kind of word. So I'm just thinking about these questions mention strengths, yet what we're doing traditionally in our companies at the moment is all about work, you know, and not the heart. It's just about the hands, just kind of the doing, and not really about the heart. So the tone of the questions are interesting for me.
And I think it's a very valid point, Mariana, because I think what you'll find right now is everyone's focused on survival. And at many organizations, it's at the cost to the people, because we are so focused on the numbers. Christine, your hand's been up for a while as well. Christine? Okay. Audrey, I think you've come off mute. Did you want to say something?
Yes, I wanted to say something because I don't know where to put my hand up, so I just
no problem.
And because I heard you sometimes saying like, oh, someone went off the mic, so I thought, okay, I'll just go off the mic, you'll notice. So my sister is doing a theology study, and they had to do the Gallup test for their study, and then she said, Audrey, we did a really interesting test. I really want you to do it. You will find it really interesting. One of my strengths was input, because I'm really an analytic person. So while we were discussing this, I've been waiting for the other 6 questions to see if what I wanted to say would come up in the other 6 questions. But now comparing the first 6 and the last 6 questions, what I noticed, and I'm now going to use my personal experience from work for this, is that what you see interweaving in all these 12 questions is respect. And we need respect in the workplace, which is really important, because if you take out some parts of these questions and the answer is no, with taking it out, I mean the answer being no, it causes a stressful work experience for people, right? And what I was mentioning yesterday to my husband, because I go to a lot of webinars since I'm unemployed right now. So I go to a lot of webinars, and my background is in diversity and inclusion. And what I told him is that if human beings were not created to live in stressful environments, the only stressful environment that you should have is fight or flight. And fight or flight normally doesn't have to be a situation that takes longer than, I don't know how long, perhaps a day or something, but not like months or years, which causes issues for people mentally, but also physically, because it comes from the inside and goes outside, and it causes problems. What I noticed that we need in the workplace for all these questions is like really respect and active listening. I had a manager from my previous job, and she was really a people manager, like what you said mentioned earlier, a servant leader, like leading from the heart. And she would ask you, what is it that I can do for you? So of course, she also had to make sure that the numbers, or how one of the other ladies in this chat mentioned, she said, most managers are focused on making the figures, the numbers that they have to make sure that everything counts up. But when people start leaving, you have the issue, because you have to start reinvesting again. So you're losing investment that you already put inside the company. And the part of the respect and active listening is really important. And it's not only from the manager, it's also from the employees themselves. Because now we're talking a lot about the manager, but we're also leaders.
Yeah.
Leadership doesn't only come from the manager. If you see that something is going well, and I noticed someone mentioning the psychological safety, you need to have courage and strength to tell your manager, this isn't going well. And you need to do something, because if you don't do something, I will burn out, or this or that will happen. Because there is an analogy that sometimes people use for trust, but I think it's also used, you can also use it in the workplace. It's when you drop a plate and it breaks and you try to glue it back together. It's like the human being, the human body, and the internal and external of human beings. Once it's broken, you cannot fix burnout back to the way you were. So from yourself, you need to get that strength and courage to tell your manager, or to teach your manager how to be a servant leader. And the difficulty will be the active listening, where your manager listen or not. But you will need to come up with the strength as well. If you see if you see that you do not understand what is expected from you at work, you need to speak out, because it will cause you stress. You will be doing other people's work, because they will always come to you and say, Audrey, in case in Dutch they say Audrey, but I know most of you have an English tongue, so I say, Audrey, can you do my work for me? And you will do it, because there isn't a framework for you, like, this is what I'm supposed to do, and I can tell you, no, this is not my part of the work, I'm not going to do it. If you need me to explain it to you, I will explain it to you today, and tomorrow you do it for yourself, because that's also a part of respect, helping each other out. If you do not understand how to do it, I can help you today. Tomorrow you don't understand, okay, I'll explain again. They say 3 times strike. 3rd time you don't understand, I will explain again. 4th time, please do it yourself. Because you know it's part of your work. If you haven't understood it, you can go to your manager. They will explain to you how you're supposed to do it. Do you have the materials and equipment that you need to do your work? If you don't say anything, you will break your back, right? Because you're taking so much on your shoulder, and it's going to break you. So you need to speak up. Have the courage to speak up that you don't have what you need, right? And the other part of having people, what people also need to understand is that you're part of the chain, right? If another person doesn't do his or her work, you will not be able to do your work optimally, to your best. And then you start having like the blockage in the chain. And that's like finesse, they say in Dutch. I'm not sure if that's the English word for the company, because you keep having these blockages in the pipeline, because people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, which it causes problem, right? The one thing that I said, does my supervisor or someone at work seem to care about me as a person? Is there someone who at work who encouraged me for my development? It doesn't have to be your manager. It can be you for another colleague.
And I think that's an important point there, Audrey.
Cheering your colleague on.
Yeah.
You can do this. We can do this, because we're a team. Even if you have like those multidisciplinary teams, you can still cheer each other on, I believe. So it's really understanding from yourself how this entire chain works. I know I've been speaking too much right now, so I'll just stop.
But I think you've introduced the next topic really, really well, because one of the things that stands out for me is we're all leaders. When we are at the bottom of the food chain or the top of the food chain, we are all leaders in our own right. And just because you have a job title that says you're a manager does not necessarily mean you're a leader. And the way you've spoken, I think, introduces the concept, and I'm thinking of some of the younger graduates on the call, as well as the more senior executives. All of us have a responsibility to create that environment where the team thrives. How do we as leaders lead, whether it be within our colleague grouping, whether it be as a senior executive, whether it be someone who is a junior and actually has to coach upwards? All of us are leaders. So I think it's important that we think about how do we create this environment where our teams thrive. I'm conscious we've got about 15 minutes left, and I see Navashni's talking psychological safety, and I know it is a passion of Fiona's. So maybe the two of you need to come off mic for a little bit and have a conversation.
Sure. No, I think you need to use your 15 minutes very sparingly. But I think being in the leadership role myself, that's exactly what we aspire to from an HR point of view. Always making sure that people feel safe, and it's just the little things. It's connecting with your people on a regular basis. Simply asking the question, "How are you today?" creates a safe space. So, it's not the big stuff. You don't have to focus on, let's talk about your career for the next 2 years. Yes, that's an important conversation, but balancing the scales and saying, how are you today? What's going on at home? Is there anything that's going to hamper you today? It's that type of thing. People want to know that we care. And if I know that my manager cares about me, I am going to open up. I am going to say, listen, I've got this issue happening. Therefore, my concentration level is not great today, for example. And having that empathy, because I think that's quite an important trait that a leader needs to have. It's having the empathy to understand and put yourself in that person's position and say, sure, okay, I see that that's what's going on, and I'm happy to, give you some time to focus on that, knowing that, we have an agreement that you'll still get the stuff done. So, it's a give and take relationship. We cannot always expect people to be 110% committed in the workplace. And I think Gallup also talks about that. One of their definitions is, how do we know what is an engaged employee? And they say that an engaged employee is 100% psychologically committed to the workplace. It's never going to happen because we've all got so many things happening in our lives. Now with the pandemic, we're balancing working from home, we're balancing being a mom while we're working, we're balancing schooling, homeschooling with kids. So there's so many things that are going on, and we need to, as leaders, be conscious of those things. So I think, if that safety is created, the safety to make mistakes, the safety to say, hey, I've done wrong, but it's okay. We hear you, we see the mistake, and how are you going to learn from it? Those are the types of things people want to hear in order to create that safe space.
Awesome. Thank you, Navashni.
I may have a point as well. Sorry about, I'll literally make it 30 seconds. For example, when you ask this question, how do we as women in the leadership create an environment where, for example, I used to run the full finance department for one company I worked for. My manager literally was my manager. She was just there. But when I left the place, the lady was like, you have taught me so much. I can never have someone has given me. So I think from an employee standpoint, it's so important to lead from the back, because leading from the back gives us as women or a greater opportunity in life in terms of our thinking abilities. For example, I may have a leader who is my manager, for example, but internally in terms of leadership in the company, in my department, within everybody else, hugging people, giving them coffee, being the person that somebody needs to listen to, being assertive and being firm and being nice and being kind. I think the human touch is the only thing that as women we have greater than anything else. We have heart that can make us great leaders that nobody else can ever have.
Thank you for that, and thank you for sharing. Christine, you had your hand up earlier and I see you typing. Are you not able to come off mute?
No, I've
there we go.
what the problem was.
Yeah, and I think my point I wanted to make earlier, and I think it's in discussion now, is that as women, particularly women leaders in the past, and I'm hoping this is shifting and changing, we used to have this very professional image, and you had to almost be tougher than the men. And only when we actually start being more vulnerable, which is not easy, it's a learned skill to be vulnerable in the workplace, and being able then to bring back that more human touch, will we start building psychological safety for our teams and for people to truly bring their full self to work. And I think that's, for me, it's the difference between just those questions, is when people start bringing their full self to work, including women, we actually start getting fully engaged people, because you cannot do it if you just this copy of a professional woman or a copy of an employee. You're not your full, bringing all your full colors, all your full potential.
Love that. It's about being human. Happiness.
Yeah.
Yes. So I love the, the idea and the notion of leadership and how we should, have that relationship with the employees. But then again, it has to be genuine. I feel like in as much as you can do it, but if it's not genuine, on the other end, like someone would be able to pick it up, and you can't do it for the sake of, doing it. So for me, I think that's the important part when it comes to, the leadership style. It has to be genuine and not force yourself.
And I think that's also true. It's about authentic leadership as opposed to putting something on.
Most definitely, yeah.
Does anyone want to add one final thought before we start the wrap up?
I have a final thought.
Go for
I
it.
feel that we have now got an opportunity. Yes, COVID has been hard. Yes, the pandemic has been hard. But the world is opening up for this discussion. And we need to have the courage to be vulnerable, the courage to step up, the courage to be fully authentic. If we don't do it, our children, and many as women have children, will not have the workplace that they can actually thrive and be whole people. So this is the time to do it. This is the time to step up and say, this is what I need. This is the time to bring yourself fully. And I'd encourage everyone just to be brave, have courage, be vulnerable, be yourself.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So just in terms of a wrap up, first of all, thank you to everyone contributing on the chat. It's like buzzing out there. Malibong, you've got one more last comment. Your hand's up.
Thank you. So I'm not sure if it's in synergy with what everyone is saying. Partially it is. I started my work in the mining industry in geology, where I was at the time the youngest and only woman as a graduate. And what I know is, I know when you are vulnerable, not because you choose to be vulnerable, and when you are in a corner. And what I've learned and what has helped me is the fact that, what we need to understand is, I love the buddy system and the whole idea, but what we need to understand is that the power is within us, right? And we need to start affirming ourselves. So whenever I sit around a table and it's men, I need to say, I deserve to be here. And I need to say, my voice should also be heard if there's anything of value that I have to share. And what I've noticed where I am, whenever there's graduates that come in, now I'm in finance, whenever there's graduates that come in, there's like a level of dependency to be affirmed. And what I do, I will initially try to affirm them. But a skill that I like to transfer is that of self-leadership, which it's unfortunate that is not part of the curriculum, which it should be. But you need to be able to help people to get to a point where I don't need my manager, I don't need my colleague to say, this is right. If I truly believe that this is right, I go at it with all force. What I need to do is always obviously check in with people to say, can you add more value? Can you review my work? Yes. But the affirmation, the right for, you need to affirm yourself. The self-leadership is critically important. So I think for human capital, another way for measuring human capital is to measure whether people are very independent in their thinking, to measure whether people are self-directed. And that would be the best way to measure human capital. And that there's no dependency on a lot of things, that people can hit the ground running without actually always asking for support.
I love that.
I may have diluted what I wanted to say. Apologies, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
No, I get you. It's about people being driven from within as opposed to waiting for external affirmation. And I think that's an awesome thing. So just in terms of wrap up, we are meeting on the third Friday of every month. I am considering moving it to a Thursday simply for the people in Australia and places like that, because it's a Friday night. I will let all of you know. If you are not currently on the meeting invite, please can I ask that you just type your email address if you want to be included in the chat so that I've got it, because some of you have come via LinkedIn and some of you have gone through other places. So if you are not getting the Outlook one, just make sure you've typed it in. And for those of you who don't know me, I also do offer executive coaching, business coaching, EQ, career coaching, and CV writing and interview prep. So if anyone needs any of those and support with any of those, please feel free to contact me. But I think that's a wrap for our February session. I'm really excited to say we've had people from 2, 4, 6, 7 countries that I know of on the forum today. And I think it's been a valuable conversation. So I'm really excited and grateful to each and every one of you for joining us today. And I hope you got some value from it too. I will stay on the line for another few minutes as you all drop off. So if anyone's got any specific questions, let me know. Next month, we're going to be talking about the book, The Power of Habit. I'm currently reading it and it's quite interesting. It's got some interesting stories from some very interesting businesses. So hopefully we can all learn together. Thank you.